One of my absolute favorite videos that I've ever made on this channel was the one where we talked about sexuality. And I realized after that video that I have never really talked about my sexuality here on this channel, so we're gonna do that today. It's a subject that I talk about a lot, just never on a public space like this, and I think that can be a fun adventure. So let's go on an adventure. I'm gonna tell this in the way that I think is the most apt, and that's by telling a story. Let's tell a story. I first became aware of any kind of physical attraction towards another person when I was maybe around like 7 or 8. My sisters would have these birthday parties, and for some reason, I would just be drawn downstairs. Like, I'd be like, well, I want to go downstairs with all of these girls. I don't know why. So what I would do is I would go downstairs to my sister's slumber parties, and I would put on my little kid charm, and they would love me, and they would paint my nails and stuff, and we had a blast. We had a blast, and for some reason I was just so happy being surrounded by all these girls who were older than me and pretty and stuff. Fun fact about me, I actually used that crash my sister's parties technique into high school and actually ended up dating someone from junior year into senior year as a result of that. I dated one of my sister's friends for a long time. She became my friend. I didn't really make the connection between me wanting to be around all of these girls as I like girls for a few years, but then in hindsight I was like, oh, that's what that was. And when I realized that, something interesting happened, because I grew up in an educational system based around traditional values, let's say, and not to say that that was a bad experience, because I'm very grateful for the education that I received. I'm the person that I am because of those years in that education system, so I value them very much. But when I made that connection that I was indeed attracted to women, I was almost strangely relieved at the idea, because I remember asking myself the question all the time, what if I'm gay? And almost being terrified at the idea of me even asking myself that question. So to finally understand that I was, in fact, attracted to girls, it brought out a sense of relief in me, and I was like, phew, I'm straight. I labeled myself right then and there, and it was decided. Fast forward into high school, I have a few relationships, I start to explore myself romantically, what I'm interested in, who I am really, because that's what high school is discovering who in fact you are. And there were a number of things that didn't really feel right about who I was to people, not even just about sexuality in general. My entire life I didn't really know who I was in high school. But one thing in particular that I never really talked about was how the label of straight did not feel right to me, and it never really did feel right. Anytime I was accused of being gay, because I went to an all-guys high school, let's face it, it was gonna happen, I would get really either offended or terrified, because, again, kind of like I was talking about earlier, I was always really scared of the idea that I might be gay, you know, things like that. And so I would either get hyper-defensive about it and start justifying the fact that I do like girls, or I would brush it off and be like, as a joke, and be super comedic about it, but really what that was burying all the feelings, and that isn't good. And this is how I existed, really, until maybe like a year or so ago, when I started getting myself more involved with human rights, with gender issues, things like that. I started thinking about what gender, sexuality, things like that really are. And the bigger picture started making more sense to me, right, about all of this, about what sexuality is and how fluid and how much of a spectrum it really is. And I started to ask myself those questions I used to ask as a smaller child, but without that fear attached to it. I started asking myself, what if I'm attracted to guys as well as girls? And I think y'all can infer, based on what this video has been leading up to, the answer that I found out was, because like I said, the label straight didn't really ever feel right to me. And while I'm predominantly physically drawn to women, I also am physically drawn to men as well. It's just a thing. And I started talking to a few people about this, because sexuality is a topic I like to talk about a lot. Not even just about me, just in general, because it's fascinating stuff. And something interesting happened. They kept trying to apply these preconceived labels to me and who I am. And that works, they're a thing, that's totally fine, but none of them really felt like me. In the same way that I don't entirely feel straight, I don't entirely feel bisexual or pansexual or whatever. I feel like me, and sometimes I want to kiss people. I don't really want a label, to be honest. I understand why they're a thing. It can be useful to know that there are some people who are like you and identify with that, but I'm good. Without one, I'm good. If anything, I don't want one because I don't want to close myself off to other opportunities, in a way, with who I can be, who I am as a person. I want to leave that open, because a majority of the last 2 years of my life have been about self-discovery, figuring out who I am, who I want to be, things like that, and I don't really want to put limits on who I can be, or who I am. You know, I want to explore all options. I want to explore the best options of myself. I want to see the worst sides of myself. I don't want to box that in at all. I want to let it rage. And I know that's not true for everyone, but it's true for me. I don't like labels as a thing. I personally feel like they hold me back, but that's not true of everyone. So yeah, just part of the adventure of figuring out who I am and who I'm gonna be. I'm excited for it. I like it. I like this, who I am. It's a pretty rad guy. Objectively, I'm not biased. I'm a little bit biased because I'm inside me. I'd like to hear what you guys have to think about this, or how you discovered who you are. Not even just, you know, physically, but mentally, emotionally. I want to hear things because I love stories. I love stories, especially stories about people. But yeah, as always, I'm Connor Manning. You've just become a little more awesome, and I will see you guys on Friday. So here's something awesome that I'm really excited about. So excited that I need to talk about it in the end screen. I'm going to Playlist Live, and I'm so frackin' excited about it. I've never been to Playlist Live. I've been to VidCon twice. Never been to Playlist, even though it's the physically closer one to me. And I'm just excited for it. I'm real excited. I'm excited to see some of you guys, some friends, and things like that. And it's going to be a raging magical fun time. So if you're going to Playlist Live, excuse me, leave me a comment. And let me know, because I want to know if we're going to hug, because I'm going to hug everyone.